Morning, everyone. Great to see you again, especially if you were here last week for our sort of 2025 update of all of the All In actions. We're really pleased today. We've got a fantastic speaker. Ash Schofield is joining us, the CEO of giffgaff. I'm really thrilled he can make it today. And it's going to be in conversation with Itty, who all of you know, sort of leading day to day on All In and the All In champion status. But as ever, we will kick off with the brilliant Dan, director at Krados, just to give us it'll be the 2023 data for social mobility, just to give context for our conversation today. So over to you, Dan.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. Morning, everyone. I've just got a few slides summarising the all-in data from 2023 in relation to social mobility. Just bear with me a sec. Okay, there we go. That should look good. Yeah, everybody see that
Perfect.
right?
It's perfect.
So just as a quick reminder, the last survey or census was done in March 2023. We received 19,000 responses. That was actually an increase from the 16,000 in 2021. So that's actually a really impressive feat to increase your response on a return survey. And it's obviously a huge sample that we can tap into. I think it's the largest D&I survey of any industry in the UK and the largest response for our industry of any survey. So it really shows the amount of engagement that we get from across industry, from both employers and people working in advertising and marketing. So really good stuff. And the next census will, of course, be this year in March the 12th, I think. So everyone should have that date in the diary to fill it in again so we can keep building this amazing data set. So in terms of socioeconomic background, obviously it's not an easy thing to pin down and identify. So there's lots of different measures that we use to give us a kind of a rounded picture. Occupation of main earner at the age of 14, so that's in your household. So that's the key kind of indicator. That's the one that the ONS use and the government use to kind of identify socioeconomic background. So that's the main one that we focus on. We've also got type of school attended, between the ages of 11 and 16, whether parents attended university, and then qualifications and whether you've received free school meals. They're also additional indicators that we're collecting all in and feed into this this data set around this issue. If we look at, this is the occupation of the main earner that I'm using on these stats here. So if we look at the breakdown, we've got professional in the dark blue there, so professional background, intermediate background in the blue there, and then a working class background in the light blue. And you see 21% of all in respondents were from a working class background. And it was pretty much the same level at C-suite, 18% from a working class background at C-suite. But if you compare that to the UK population, you see that 40% of the UK population are from a working class background. So there's a huge discrepancy between the UK population and the industry. And you'll see 63% of the industry from a professional background compared to just 36% in the UK population. So really big discrepancies there. And working class people from a working class background, they're actually the most underrepresented demographic of the kind of diverse protected characteristics that we measure. That the discrepancy between the UK population and the industry is larger than any other demographic. So it's always key to keep that in mind. If we look at the proportion of all in respondents that were privately educated, that's 19%. And that was pretty much the same in 2021 when it was 20%. But that 19% jumps to 28% of C-suite. So you can really see there the over-representation of privately educated people in the highest positions. And when you compare it to the UK population, where just 8% of people were privately educated, you can see, again, there's a huge over-representation in the industry. This is the proportion of people with a degree. So it was 72% of people from the All In response from the advertising and marketing industry had a degree. That was the same in 2021 as it was in 2023. And again, it's much higher than the UK working population. And I know we have evidence from the census that things are beginning to improve in terms of more people without degrees getting into the industry. But I think this reflects that historical reliance on graduates that the industry has had. So a kind of a key thing to note is where working class people are working within the industry. And on the left-hand side there, you'll see that where there is an overrepresentation of people from a working class background. And on the right-hand side, an underrepresentation of people from a working class background. So you'll see there's a lot working in finance, operations, office services, IT. So those kind of operations that you might think are not advertising front line, they're kind of more kind of support services, whereas account planning, account management, comms, obviously C-suite, as we've noted, have a much lower representation of working class people. So there is also an occupational kind of bias as well about where people are working. So we have about 45, I think, measures of company culture and experience that we track in All In. And I've just flagged some of the kind of key ones to note here. Now, what we do find is that actually once people from working class backgrounds are in the industry, their experience doesn't differ that greatly from the All In average. However, obviously, working class is a really broad term. There's a lot of different types of people in that, and one of the what a kind of government sources identify as the most disadvantaged background within the working class group is those from a long-term unemployed background. So that when you were 14 years old, your household was kind of a long-term unemployed, classified as long-term unemployed. So that group does kind of show up as having a more negative experience. If we look at some of these, feel they belong at their company. So there's not much difference between the working class group, but for that long-term unemployed group, there is a fair bit of difference there. My company attracts a workforce that represents the diversity of my community. Again, a big difference there between the All In average and the most disadvantaged groups there. This is an interesting one. There are people similar to me in leadership positions across my company. So, this role model and seeing people in leadership positions, it's actually is significantly lower, this one, for the working class group as a whole, and then is even lower for that long-term unemployed background, people from that sort of background. And to succeed in my company, it's a case of who you know, not what you know. Again, slightly higher for the working class group, but significantly higher for that long-term unemployed group. So just showing some of the differences within that working class group, and also some of the differences between the All In group overall. Now, in terms of workplace experience, so these are all things that people said, yes, have happened to me in the last 12 months at work. Again, there's not a great deal of difference between the working class group and the All In average, but when we look at that most disadvantaged group from a long-term unemployed background, there are big differences. So people taking sole credit for shared efforts, 31% for that long-term unemployed said, yes, that's happened to me in the last 12 months, compared to 24% of all respondents. Undervalued compared to colleagues of equal competence, again, higher for that long-term unemployed group. Bullied or undermined in any way, so kind of getting into more serious kind of serious behaviours. 15% of people from that group said they had experienced that in the last 12 months, which again was 5% higher than the All In average. And then discrimination based on a socioeconomic background. So obviously higher for the working class group, 4%, but still, that not as big as it could be, but it does jump for 9% for that long-term unemployed group there. So obviously, particularly for those from the most disadvantaged backgrounds, they are experiencing more negative behaviors and experiences in the workplace. Yeah, and that was it. So just a quick overview there of the kind of key results around social mobility. There's obviously lots more, so do get in touch if there's anything specific you'd like to get more information on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dan. as ever. Um, and Itty, I'm going to hand over to you now because I think you're going to share the just give an overview of the actions as where we stand at the moment. Because just for anyone who doesn't know, um, we launched just 3 actions back in 2021, and it's evolved as a plan with the support of all of the working groups who drive this work behind the scenes. I know we've got some of the social mobility group on the call today. So this is an overview of them that Itty will just share very quickly, and then I'm going to hand over to her and to Ash to start, have their conversation.
Amazing. Thanks, Sharon, and morning, everyone. Yeah, Sharon mentioned this is the action plan, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. There's 8 actions here covering a range of kind of demographics and characteristics that we're encouraging businesses to implement. And the first 3 actions, actions 1 through 3, were updated in May of last year. So that kind of is the reason why we're coming together to kind of talk about how we can unpack them a bit more. But the one we want to focus on, of course, today is the action on social mobility, which is to adopt the Early Careers Social Mobility Toolkit. This is a toolkit that was developed by the Working Group for Social Mobility, with this particular focus on early careers, on kind of people who are perhaps more junior or perhaps just entering the industry for the first time, and ways that we can support them and increase and improve representation in that area. So I just thought we quickly just scan over the toolkit and the 5 key goals that we're asking your businesses to kind of look at and track your progress against specifically. So the first one is apprenticeships. And the main goal here is to really explore how your company can utilize an apprenticeship or alternative entry-level training. So it could be T-levels or something similar. Obviously, there's a lot of reform going on, as we know, with the government's introduction of the new Skills and Growth Levy as an alternative to the former Apprenticeships Levy. But that should now allow, as well as many other changes, for businesses to actually access that levy to offer more kind of lower level apprenticeships and shorter apprenticeships for people who might not even be ready for the usual level 3 apprenticeship as well. And yeah, as I mentioned, they're also kind of looking at shortening the minimum length of an apprenticeship than the standard 12 months. So it's basically to explore if that's something that your businesses could implement. The next goal is data. And again, could your business include data on social background when collecting information from new starters? Obviously, you do a lot of kind of measurement of different characteristics when people join, but this question is about asking if you can include stuff on socioeconomic data, perhaps using the questions that Dan just referenced. But if anything, that standard question on asking what the occupation of the main earner in your household was at 14 tends to be the standard question used by most companies. The next goal is for recruitment, and looking at ways that you might be able to partner with recruitment programs or providers who have a particular focus on driving improved social mobility. We've got a reference, I mean, we've got examples in the toolkit on the All In Hub of different partners already that we've contacted, but you may well know more, you may be working with more, or if you're managing all of your recruitment internally, perhaps look at your processes. Do you actually need to have specific qualifications listed if they're not relevant? Could you instead just recruit for skills and experience unless, you know, those specific qualifications are essential for the role? And next we have support. And the goal here is to kind of see if you can implement a system of support for new starters. And this could be some sort of mentorship scheme, a new buddy scheme, something that really helps them. And I think this part's important because once you actually reach the talent and from working class backgrounds or from underrepresented or underserved groups, how are you actually nurturing them when they get to your business? For a lot of these people, you might be providing them with their first formal work experience or formal corporate experience. And so there's a really great opportunity here to nurture and fully integrate these people. And so look at ways that you can support them and actually make sure that they're fully integrated and that onboarding process is really meaningful and impactful for them. And last but not least, we have the goal of informing. And this is basically seeing if you might have the opportunity to partner with schools or colleges to provide more information or education on the range of career opportunities that are available within UK advertising and marketing. So perhaps this is partnering with a local school or partnering with a trust that's working in schools already, and seeing if you can take that one step further than just the recruitment aspect and actually try and meet people at education age, and talk to them about what's available to them and the career opportunities. So those are the 5 goals of the Early Careers Toolkit. And now I'm really, really delighted to be speaking with Ash Schofield, the CEO of giffgaff. Really, really pleased to have you here, Ash. So welcome. We're going to have a bit of a discussion about social mobility, your efforts, and all of the work being done at giffgaff, as well as We Are Here, which is your new collective that you've been spearheading along with Martin George. So hi, Ash. Thanks for joining us.
Morning. Hi, everyone.
Bear with
I
me.
got a wave. Oh, I got another one. Oh, it's all happening now. That
There we
makes me feel
go.
very welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Lovely to speak to you. I wondered then if we could kind of start this discussion by you telling us a little bit about your journey, your career journey, and what's basically brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, big question. I was a bit of a late starter into marketing. I guess what was quite critical, I didn't get a degree, I didn't get A levels. I did go to what was called polytechnics then, for people that are old enough to remember them, and I'd gone down the BTEC route. But when I enjoyed that, that sort of suited my style of learning. But when I came out of poly, literally when you went to the graduate milk rounds, it had signs up saying no BTEC, so degrees only, so I actually ended up working in factories for a while, filling bottles with chemicals and things, until I got myself some quite low level office work. But once until my kind of mid-20s that I thought, I think I might want to be in marketing. And I signed up for the CIM of an evening, and started doing some evening classes, and just wormed my way into a marketing job, and it turned out I did all right, and then I was quite lucky, a couple of years later, that I got into the telco industry, which was obviously growing rapidly. So this is like 1999. Some people had big Nokias, if you remember. But it was just like loads and loads of growth. So it was a very exciting market, and I've been involved in telco ever since. So 26 years and various different brands. So incredible journey. But somehow I ended up as CEO of giffgaff. That happened 6 years ago, and I had a bit of an epiphany really But when I was the marketing director, I kind of thought, well, somewhat arrogantly maybe, I thought, well, maybe I'm sort of running the company anyway, so what could be different? And then when I ended up running the company, it felt quite different. And I did feel quite a burden of responsibility of, I've got all of this power and influence now, what am I going to do with it? And obviously shifting more SIM cards and more phones was important. That kind of greases the wheel, but it didn't feel like the most important thing.
Mm.
It's like how we were going to do it, and that kind of big thought around legacy and what you leave behind, and all that started to come into play a little bit. So that's kind of affected the way that I've led over the last 6 years, I think.
Yeah. And do you think that then your journey into, as you said, you kind of did a lot of other things before you fell into marketing, and then were able to work your way up? Did that experience really shape the type of leader that you wanted to be?
Yeah, I mean, I had some
Perspective
cracking
of,
conversations on production lines with people, that were from very working class backgrounds.
mm,
And I'd end up, what did I know? You know what I mean? I was like 20, but I ended up coaching them about their future career prospects, and they were like, I actually don't understand, but there are no opportunities. We can't get out of this trap.
Yeah.
You know, it had quite a sort of profound effect on me then. So even then, I sort of, like, how can I help? How can I make a difference? Was sort of on my mind.
Yeah.
But I realised something. I was at an event a couple of years back, you know, and I was thinking, I love a good story, you know, and I like story structure. You know, so I was thinking about my early career, and there's a bit of a sort of quest for meaning in chapter one. You know, like what's all this about? And it took me a while to kind of find a path into chapter two, which is about sort of like starting to get a level of meaning, right? This is starting to make sense, and you know, you're getting a salary, and maybe you can start to buy your first house when you still could buy a house in your 20s. And yeah, maybe there's a sense of purpose emerging, and you know, you're having an impact. But maybe chapter three is the most important one, you know, and this comes maybe a bit later. Well, I think chapter three is about helping other people find meaning. I think that's it, you know, which creates a nice kind of virtuous circle, really.
Yeah.
But if you kind of live your career in those three chapters, I think you've probably done okay.
That's great. I really love that kind of full circle moment where you find your purpose and then you turn around and help other people find theirs. I think it's really profound.
Someone I know said to me a while back, he said, the thing is, Ash, I've just realised that no one's going to remember me for selling marginally more insurance than everybody else. And I thought, what a great realization. Like, there's more to it. Growth's important, don't get me wrong. You know, I love growth. I love driving the business to higher levels of performance, but it's not the only thing. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of how you do it and what you leave behind, which for me is probably more important.
Amazing. And on that kind of piece of what you leave behind, I think a big reason why we wanted to talk to you today, and hear about we are here, is that it really kind of does align with and reflect a lot of what All In's trying to do in terms of, you know, really improve the inclusion and representation of UK advertising's workforce, make it somewhere where everyone feels like they have a place that they belong. But that absolutely requires a collective effort and a lot of partnerships between us and the brands and the agencies and the media owners and tech platforms to do that work and really pull together. And I feel like the We Are Here initiative really kind of does reflect that. So I also wanted to ask you about how that collective came about and what its core purpose and mission is, if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've nailed it there. Well, we've seen the stats from Dan, you know, and they're uncomfortable, aren't they? You know, it's not a great read. I think if you look back, there's some improvement over the last 10 years, but it's marginal. We need a paradigm shift, and we're not achieving that. And my observation, and Martin George, formerly of Waitrose, I've been working with on this, is that there's quite a lot of good work going on. You know, what you guys are doing with the Advertising Association, putting a framework in place is amazing, right? And there's lots of other good stories out there of people doing things, but it doesn't seem to be materially affecting the numbers, you know, in the way that we need to. That's the kind of the observation. So I think you're absolutely right. There's something about a collective, a movement, doing things together that would be hugely synergistic, that would make a difference. You know, our kind of complementary thought is that this is somewhat ironic, isn't it, as marketers, that we don't seem to look at it like a marketing problem, but we have a funnel issue here, everybody, right? Kids don't know what marketing is. Their parents don't know what marketing is. Therefore, there's no aspiration to get into marketing. But in contrast, we've got a generation that are more brand savvy than we've ever seen before. So if you said to a kid, "Do you want to work for Adidas?" It'd say, "Yeah, love to. What are you going to do there?" No idea, right? So I think there's a bit of demystifying what marketing's all about, how you can access it, and the breadth of opportunity that marketers industry brings to people. So there's that thought there that it's not really on young people's kind of roster of potential opportunities. So we need to affect that. And then concurrently, we've got brands that are just, you know, in echo chambers, because they haven't got access to the people that are actually buying the products and or going to buy their products in the future, you know, and I feel that's a huge gap. So what I always think about things in terms of, you know, I'm a marketer by trade, right? So everything goes into a matrix. So I like to spend as much time as possible in the top right hand box. So whether it's kind of you're driven by creating value or delivering on values, that's the space you want to be. You know, so I think we can positively affect industry performance by doing the right thing. And Sharon and I were chatting earlier, and I do think, you know, whatever you want to call it, D&I or, you know, any programs along these lines, when trading becomes difficult, when there's challenges on the P&L, you know, there's often a red line goes through a lot of the efforts in this kind of space. But I think the problem with that is that it's not, the benefit has never really been understood in the first place. So it's felt like, you know, we'll do this concurrent to the real work, as opposed to this being the real work. And I think it's that intersection that's really important. I could tell you a short story about something we did at giffgaff over COVID. We're an online business. We've always been an online business before it was trendy, you know, to me. Being online became especially trendy, obviously, during COVID. So the price of engineers went up astronomically, you know, and we're a lean business. We can't, you know, we pay fairly, we pay decent, but we don't pay like Meta pay or Google. So we were struggling to fill vacancies, you know, and at the same time, I was just thinking about how many kids are sort of just hanging about, making a marginal nuisance of themselves. How many of they could actually be software engineers, but go through life and never know it? You know, and I was thinking, well, if I saw a group of 15 youngsters, maybe 2 or 3 probably could. So I shared that thought with our CTO and the rest of my leadership team. And there was just a real enthusiasm to do something about it. I said, well, let's find out, you know, that kind of experimentation mindset. Let's find. So we fast forward, and it literally only took about 3 months. We set up our own tech academy. We partnered with a company called Hatch that helped us find people of lower socioeconomic groups that so far the industry had kind of missed. Through about 40, 50 interviews, we whittled it down to 11 kind of graduates that we would put through our intensive giffgaff tech academy, which we did for 3 months. And somewhat beautifully, we hired all 11 of them. Now, what's interesting, our focus was on socio-economic backgrounds, but actually when you eyeball the cohort, it was kind of 50-50 gender split, which isn't ordinary in tech, by the way, right? And the mix of ethnicity was very present as well. So by kind of using that socio-economic, you affected everything, actually, all those different intersections. You could affect in a very positive way. So what I'm telling you this because there's just there's an essence of a lot of this can be very overwhelming, and there's all of this data, and it's like, where do I start, and how do I get the board on board, and so on. But one of the mantras we have at giffgaff is to start by starting, like do something, because if you do something, it'll be probably followed by something else. You know what I mean? And you can grow. So, you know, we had a marketing apprentice from the Marketing Academy Foundation, which was a great experience. We did the Tech Academy. We ran an event in partnership with my initiative around We Are Here, where we partnered with Arc Academy. And the thought there was that whilst kids don't know what marketing is, like they do have an opinion on advertising, and they'll tell you whether it sucks or not. They just might not know why it sucks. Right. So if you give the thought was like bring 30 kids in, and let them give us as giffgaff some very direct feedback about what they think about our advertising. And then teach them how to properly critique our advertising. On the thinking that if you can properly critique an ad, you can probably also create one. You know what I mean? So that was the essence of the day. And if anybody on this call wants to do something similar, I asked. It was an easy ask. I asked our marketing department who wants to join us for the day. We got kind of 5 instant volunteers, and for them it was life changing. They're like, Ash, when can we do that again? Because the energy of Charlotte Rogers came down for Marketing Week, wrote a lovely article about it. She talked about the energy, just that kind of raw exchange of, and I said to the group at the beginning, it's like, look, you are really important. You've no idea how important you are, and we want to give you a platform, and we want to help educate you as to how to use that platform, because you've got something very important to say. So the 30 B-Techers that came on, who were marginally interested in marketing, I think from the survey at the end of it, 27 of them all wanted to be in marketing after the day, which was kind of a great outcome, I think. You know.
That's amazing. And I really, really like both of those things. And I liked what you said earlier, actually, about with the Tech Academy, how you focused on socioeconomic backgrounds, but it actually was something that benefited in a lot of other areas as well, and reached a lot of different characteristics. Because again, that's also what we're aiming to do with All In. The action plan is, all the actions are linked to a characteristic or a demographic, but the idea is that by doing all of them, it helps everyone. It benefits the entire workforce. So I really like that idea, and I really love kind of both of those examples of really great work, both at giffgaff and the partnership with We Are Here, to really give opportunities to educate and inform and give access to people who wouldn't know that they've probably got a career in marketing if they wanted one. So it sounds like really, really good work being done. I think I wanted then to kind of look at, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what the challenges might have been actually, if you've experienced any challenges, both at giffgaff and beyond, of kind of implementing this work or around this area of promoting kind of social mobility, and how you've overcome those.
I think, back to my earlier point, it's got to be rooted in solving business problems. And when you do that, then it's enduring. You're making a change forever. When I first joined giffgaff, like, fortunately, people don't tend to use our service because they don't need it, because we offer something really simple that works. So people contact us about once every 5 years, which is great, right? Nice lean model. But people still do contact us. And we had a contact center in India, which was great. It was performing at a decent rate. And it was, good terms. But we noticed that people were leaving a lot because they were using it as a stepping stone to their next job. So we had constant attrition. We're constantly retraining people. And I was like, this isn't really effective, is it? giffgaff has a community, an online community of just, we call them members rather than customers, because giffgaffers have such a kind of big stake in how we run the business. And what they do, which is quite wonderful, is they actually act as a frontline service channel in many ways, because people ask a question on the community, and other giffgaff members will answer that question. So I just had a thought. I was like, actually, we got lots of people working from the bedrooms effectively for us. We're saying thank you through a scheme called Payback, which is, it's a thank you scheme. It's not a salary. But when we dug a bit further, it's kind of what's going on here. People really value the money that they were getting through Payback, and they were kind of using it as a second job in a way. So I said, well, why don't we close India and just give some of our community members secure access and training to our core systems, and we could employ a whole lot more. So you're getting into, again, people with often challenging socio-economic backgrounds that are actually looking for part-time work to supplement other work that they're doing, quite keen on working quite flexible hours. So it's a real business problem for us, but it's a real opportunity as well for people in the community that did want to show up. And cut long story short, I put a blog on the community to say, do you want to come and join us? And I broke our third party service providers HR team, because we got something like 3,000 job applications in a week. So we started to employ our own members. We started to give people access to work that weren't able to get it for numerous reasons. Some people weren't able to leave the house, but now they could work for giffgaff from home, in hours that suited us and suited them. Fast forward to COVID, the rest of the telco industry was desperately trying to find laptops to help their agents work from home. Like 90% of our agents already work from home. So it kind of solved the problem for us at the start. It had an impact socially, and then it turned out to be an even better idea, sort of 6 years down the road when COVID turned up. So I think that the focus is don't do it as an also ran. If it's only values led, it's vulnerable. But if you're doing things that are solving real business problems and creating access and opportunity for people at the same time, it's a win, right? And it's enduring. It'll get baked into the way that your business operates.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I guess what's next? Do you have any thoughts and things thinking about what's next, perhaps for We Are Here, for giffgaff? Where do you see kind of the marketing industry heading? How can we do more as businesses to support social mobility? What's your kind of dream?
Yeah, we've got a website, wearehere.biz. We couldn't afford .com. Maybe we get more partners, maybe we'll buy that one. But check out wearehere.biz. It tells the whole story. What we really want to do is build a kind of portal into marketing opportunities that's kind of like for young people from challenging socio-economic backgrounds, and kind of run by young people from social economic backgrounds. And we've got a couple of big brand partners. We kind of want a collection. No disrespect if you work for a brand that's maybe not in this space, but we really want a collective in the first instance of about half a dozen pretty cool Gen Z brands. To that earlier point of kids don't really understand marketing, but they understand brands. So if you can say, look, these 6 brands that you'd like to work for and recognize as being pretty cool and got credibility have come together to make change. So that's we've got 2, we'd like 6. So anyone on the call that's interested, please call me. We want to create a site. We are here as a destination for young people. giffgaff was built on the power of having a good idea that's shareable. We have a fraction of the marketing spend that our competitors have. Our member contribution to our overall gross sales is enormous, right? So the same sort of thinking. It's like if you can tap into communities and get word of mouth working for you, particularly in social platforms, then that's the sweet spot, right? It's like get people engaged and saying nice things and advocating for you, and we will build the destination. At the destination, if you can tell stories of people and look and sound like you who have already made it into marketing, particularly that are still of your generation. The first thing we did in the We Are Here day at giffgaff was I got 4 of my team from they were just volunteers, but this is how it played out. Very, very diverse backgrounds, all telling their stories of how they got into marketing, all of which were beautifully squiggly. You know what I mean? So that stupid question that parents and guardians and aunties and uncles ask young people is like, what are you going to be when you grow up? The obvious answer is, I've no freaking idea. I'm 17. You know what I mean? But if you reframe that of like, what are you going to try first? That's probably an easier question to answer, right? So the We Are Here destination, we'd like to kind of demystify what careers in marketing might look like. We're talking to an agency who's got a whizzy tool that says, tell us what you're into, and we'll tell you what kind of marketing career you could have. So tell testimonial stories, use the power of AI and such to create a whizzy tool to help people picture themselves in it and say, like, you could be a creative, or you could be in programmatic marketing, or so on and so forth. Start to make the link to all of the activity that's going on out there. I was lucky enough to be with Sharon on the panel for the Marketing Week Trailblazer Award. It was like 30 different companies doing great things that the vast majority of the population know nothing about. You know what I mean? So it's like, how can we start to just plug more people into those and demonstrate awareness? I'm a member of the Marketing Academy. Marketing Society are bought into this. We're talking obviously with you good folks as well. One easy way to make a contribution is just to show up as a mentor. It's like it can be half an hour of your time a month to start there. But that one conversation that you have with someone could change the course of their career and career prospects. So maybe hooking people up with conversations. So you can start to see how you can, there's so much going on. You start add module, and you're starting to build a destination that is discoverable, that young people actually talk about and say, you should go there. Like, here's an experience I had. It was brilliant. So it's a grower, I think. At the moment, it's turned from concept from few folks at the Marketing Academy, fellowship alumni, to partnering with Analog Folk, who have been brilliant agency that have helped put the website together, to sharing that as an idea, and other brands and agencies starting to lean in and say, okay, yeah, this is that. We're when this becomes more tangible, we're in, to kind of getting it to a place where we're starting to build the kind of first prototype of a destination for young people, and starting to engage young people in the ongoing running of it. So hopefully that kind of explains where we're coming from.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. I think that's brilliant work, and I really look forward to seeing kind of how things continue to progress and move on. Thank you so much, Ash. I think you've shared really brilliantly some great insights. And I'm just conscious of time. I'm sure some people in the chat might have some questions. So if you have any questions for Ash, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself. But just before that, Ash, final question from us. What would you, if everyone on the call could take one thing away from this session, from this conversation, what would you want it to be?
Start by starting. Do something this week, or definitely by the end of next week, do something different. Because like I say, if we've seen marginal improvement over 10 years, but for the good of the nation and the good of the industry, we need to make that paradigm shift. You have to do something different. Doing the same is just going to deliver the same outcome. So I think that's the first ask. But do something that solves real business problems, because that might really take hold. Like I say, and whether you're talking to someone who's just purely driven by the money, or you're talking to someone who's really values driven, there's a beautiful crossover there. And so therefore you can be very persuasive with both profiles. Third bit, don't overcomplicate it. I mean, we can get, because this is an enormous issue, you can get paralyzed, and you can think about it for 2 years and do nothing. So back to point one, think about it differently and do something, even if it's only a little thing. It's infectious, right? In a good way. It'll start a new chain reaction of different things.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ash. Again, it's really, really great to have you on the call. And I think you shared, amazingly. So really, really pleased to hear all of the work you're doing, and get all of your advice and insights. Does anyone have any questions? I'm aware that we are very very much cutting it close, but if you want to stay on for a couple of minutes, we can have a bit of a Q&A.
Yeah, and thanks Itty and Ash for a really insightful conversation. I was hanging on every word. I was just really struck by the sort of comment much further up in the questions box about accents. And I think, as we continue this conversation throughout the year, I'm going to be intrigued to see what the new data says when we get that sort of late March, early April. Somebody that started in the industry like 40 years ago with quite a strong Scottish accent, got not a trace of it now. It's something. I mean, I'm really struck because I think in the media now there is so many more accents, and there was just nothing back in the day when I started in advertising. So I think that need to mask where you came from was probably a bit stronger than it is now. But it's really striking that so many people are still talking about it. Do you have a view on that now?
I mean, I've got an accent. You may have noticed. Someone actually said to me the other day, "Isn't it refreshing to hear a CEO with a Manchester accent?" Do you know what I mean? I was like, "Yeah, I suppose it's still a bit of a thing, isn't it?" So I mean, it's very much part of my identity, and in many ways, the further south I go, the stronger my accent becomes. But I sort of think, look, this is a really important point, right? Life's been easier for me because I could connect largely with white men in power. Despite my accent, wherever they were from, I could connect with them. And every so often, I made a connection to the extent that someone really was looking out for me, and was giving me a nudge or opening a door for me. And I have, having got to, this level of seniority, I'm very mindful of that. And I do think about, well, what if I couldn't have connected in the same way? What would have happened? And I think the answer is not very much would have happened. So I'm very grateful that I was in that position to be able to make a connection with the people in power. And unfortunately, my accent was a thing, particularly with Manchester as well. You often say mate at the end of every sentence. And I remember calling a senior manager in the business in the South on one occasion, where he said, "And by the way, I'm not your mate," which made me feel quite small. I wasn't overly friendly. So I think yeah. So depending on what accent you have, people have certain perceptions about you. They make snap judgments about your level of intelligence. For me, I'm like, yeah, but you got to be yourself, haven't you? So be who you are, be proud of who you are, but be mindful of where you're coming from and how people might perceive you. And therefore, there's an onboarding exercise for everyone, isn't there?
But it's part of that soft skills that I know when we had a government call last year when we were looking at apprenticeships and sort of it's changing that phrase soft skills into core business skills, and maybe like from what you've just said, that is a really important combination.
Yes.
To develop that while you retain that essence of who you are and be true to who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can all do, Sharon. And it was in Dan's facts as well around, getting people that might have been missed into the industry is step one. Keeping them in the industry is step two. And I've been doing some mentoring with another company where it's really it's really clear where step one's been achieved, but step two, it's quite a lonely place because they're struggling to connect with the kind of culture, that kind of thing. So just be aware of that and think about how you can show up just to help that ongoing onboarding experience. Because I think organizations need to change, but also there is a level of, the people come in, you just need to really learn the ropes pretty quick and understand how this works, because it might not work in the way that you're used to from the communities that you form and things. So, it's a two-way thing there, I think.
That's a really helpful perspective. What a brilliant conversation. Thanks again to Itty and to you. As I say, it was spellbinding. And Dan, as ever, for the data. We've got another one of these next Wednesday, where we are looking at Black talent and the action that we've evolved around that community. So please do come back for that. Thanks again for staying on the line. I know we always slightly go over. That's why we have this sort of buffer of 15 minutes, just cuts into the coffee making time. But thanks again. If you're not able to make next week, I'll do the reminder now that on March the 12th, we're doing the next All In Census. Thanks, Itty. Helpful reminder for everybody. So there'll be links being shared with all of your organisations in the next couple of days. But if you don't get it for some reason, it'll be on our All In Hub. There's a countdown starting very shortly, and you can just take part just after midnight on March the 12th. So thanks so much again. Thanks, Ash, for making the time today. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Maybe we'll bring you back towards the end of the year just to look at the newer data and pick up the conversation. Thanks everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity. And thanks for the links
Ash,
you provided. I'm just checking all those out.
Oh yeah, always very helpful sharing community in the chat on these calls. So yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great week and we'll see you very soon.
Bye.